Hello everyone, and thanks for checking out this video. We are doing a review video today. Vantrue N2 Pro. So the company that's selling this on Amazon contacted me and asked if I'd like to do a review of their camera for them. So I said yes. They've sent this camera out. I'm going to be showing you in this video various examples of the footage, giving you a bit of an explanation of it and a bit of a review of what I think of it. I'll be doing a bit of showing some clips of the unboxing and all the accessories. Just a few things I just wanted to let everyone know. The company that's selling this camera, I've got no affiliation with them at all, so I have nothing to do with the company. They basically just contacted me and asked me if I'd like to review the camera, and that they'd send me one to keep to review. I'm actually going to give this camera away to a subscriber. There'll be another video upcoming to give you the details on that. So, and the company is actually given me, if you go and have a look in the links in the first comment I've pinned, and also in the video description, you'll see there's two links there to where you can buy this camera. There's a link for Australian viewers and there's also a link for international viewers. So you can go there, and then underneath there's a promo code where you can get 18% off and 20% off depending on whether it's the Australia or international one. So you can go there and use that promo code if you'd like to buy this camera, and you can get a discount by using that code for being a subscriber of Scott's Car Cameras. So just to let you know, with that, I am making absolutely no money off the sales of that. I'm making no money out of any of it, no commission, no extra stuff. They simply sent me the camera and asked me to review it, and since I looked at the camera and I think it's a pretty good camera, I've decided I'd do it, and I'm just going to give the camera away to one of my subscribers. What sets this camera apart from many of the other ones is it's a dual lens camera, so it's two cameras in one. It has a forward-facing camera, and it also has an in-cabin camera. So if you want to, you can actually have one that will record inside the vehicle. Now, some of you may be wondering what's the purpose. So various types of reasons you might want to use it. If you're a taxi driver, Uber, delivery driver, and any other kind of capacity, bus driver, all those kind of things. Another good reason to have it actually recording in the cabin. If a police officer pulls you over and says you were using your phone illegally, or you didn't have a seatbelt on, or something else and it's not true, you've actually got the footage to prove you weren't touching the phone, or you were wearing your seatbelt. So it's good to keep an eye on that. Another good feature, which I think people may not realize, I often have people asking me saying they want to have a front and rear camera, but a lot of the systems that have front and rear cameras are expensive, or they'd have to run all the cabling to the back and their car's maybe not suited to it. Don't really have the practicality of having two cameras, two single ones. So if you've got a vehicle that suits the purpose, for example, see in front of me this black Commodore Ute here, if you actually had this camera installed in it, because it's a two-seater, the in-cabin camera would actually be looking straight at the back. So you've essentially got yourself a front and rear camera in one. So if you've got a ute, a small vehicle, a van, any of those kind of things, even if you don't want it for looking at yourself, and you don't want to record yourself while you're driving around, it's actually still a great way of having a front and rear camera for accident purposes. So if someone was to still hit you from behind, you've still got the camera there recording it. Another good feature with the internal camera, unlike most, this one actually has infrared LEDs for the internal camera. So even though the inside of the car is going to be dark, because you're not going to have lights on, obviously, during night, it'll actually light the cabin up and give you lighting from the infrared camera. So moving on to a few of the features of the camera. One of the great features I found of the camera is when it mounts to the windscreen, this one has a traditional suction cup style, but rather than just being a little latch that you flick on, you actually turn it, and the suction cup section is actually quite a decent one. It's not sort of, a lot of the other cameras can tend to fall off a lot. This one, the suction cup, is quite a good setup. But the best part I like about it is the power cable actually plugs directly into the top of the suction cup section, and power is then transmitted into the camera via the bracket. There are pins where it connects in the bracket, and it's actually powered from there. So the advantage of this is the cable then doesn't have to be hanging down next to the camera. You can run it up into the top of your car through the ceiling as you would run it around to get powered, and then it really makes it neat and out of the way. The next good part about that is now when you want to remove the camera, whether you want to take it away to get footage, whether you want to take it getting washed or serviced, or if you don't want to leave it out somewhere, just basically flick the little latch, the camera slides out, and you haven't moved the position of the camera. So when you actually go to put it back in, you literally just slot it straight back in, and you haven't bumped the camera, and you don't have to sit there and then readjust the camera to get it looking where you want. The unit overall, it's very light, it's quite small. The buttons on it to save footage and that are very easy to get to and easy to press, unlike some other models. Features of this camera: most dash cameras that I've owned or looked into, usually they take up to a 32 megabyte SD card, memory card, or a 64. My front cam can take up to a 64, which is one of the newer ones. But that's usually the limit of most of them that you see. This camera actually, being a new one, can actually take up to a 256 gigabyte memory card. So you can have a 64, 128, or a 256. So where that is actually good, even though it's got the save button and you can save your events, if you want to do long trips and you want to look back, especially if you want to record in 4K, that obviously uses a bit more memory. So also if you're going to have a lot of the parking modes, and if you've got a car that turns on and off, powers them up when you unlock the doors, you can often get 5 or 10 minutes of footage in there. So if you're using it a lot, someone like myself who runs it a lot, having that extra memory is actually a really good feature that a lot of the other ones can't. So it means you can actually go longer without having to take the camera out and get the footage off when you want it.
Another feature I just wanted to touch on quickly was for the power cable for this. The power connector that plugs into the car's power outlet, the cigarette lighter, it's actually, when that happens, obviously it takes up the slot, and often if you want to put something else in there, you need to buy a double adapter. This one actually has, as you can see in the images, a USB port on the top that you open up the cover, and there's a little USB port in there, so you can then attach your charger for your phone or other accessory straight into there, and you don't actually need to buy a double adapter. You can still run two things out of the one power port. So that was another really good feature. Just to summarize with the camera, I've run it for over a week now, and I've used it on all of its resolution settings. Its highest one at 2560 times 1440p at 30 frames, and then a few variations down. It has 1080 at 60 frames and 1920 at 1080 at 30 frames. Tried all of them, and to be honest, they're all very good. The image quality on the camera, no matter what the setting is actually very good in the playback, so I've been happy with them all. Running it in the front end camera at the same time, I did the trial run with that to see how that would affect the image quality. Sometimes when you do that on other cameras, the one drops down below 720, or having two running at once can cause a bit of a processing problem for the camera. This one runs both front and rear when you're running them at the same time at 1080p, 30 frames. And to be honest, the picture quality on the front cam and the rear, when you're doing it, you really couldn't tell the difference from the other settings. It was still a very good picture. And I did notice when I was actually doing that and seeing how much it sees on the internal cabin. So the front camera actually has 170 degrees across the front. The internal's got 140 degree rear facing, so it actually captures a lot going back out the rear window. So even if you were to actually run that, if you were to get, say, T-boned or any impact from the side, there's a good chance that camera's going to catch it as well, which is another good reason to run it. The So another option too, the internal camera can actually move up and down. It has an 80-degree rotation, so that internal facing camera, you can move it up and down as well. So just to summarize with the camera, a couple other notes. So it has a parking mode. Like most cameras, if you want to have that in that, you buy an additional little kit that hardwires it to the car's power, and then it can run constantly in the parking mode. It has an optional GPS mode for showing your GPS and speeds, but if you want to do that, there's an additional little GPS unit which is built into the suction cup, so you buy a separate suction cup unit. You can buy it from the same place you buy the camera if you want to run the GPS and have your speed and GPS showing. So overall with the camera, I've run it all different settings using the camera, different modes, and for the price of it and what you get out of it, I must say I've been pretty impressed with the camera and very happy with it. Everything's worked perfectly on it. So if the features I've gone through in the video, as I said, I think some of its best ones, that one has a very good camera, very good image quality on it. The dual lens feature and how you can use that is really good. You can run it and it doesn't split screen it. It's two separate images, so when you actually play back the image, it's two separate files, so it's not overlaid. So if you want to run it, but maybe you don't want to send the footage of you internally in the car to anyone, they're two separate files, so you can use them both at the same time, and then if something happens and you want to show someone footage just the front, it's a separated file, so that's no problem doing that. As I said, I like the way the suction cup incorporates the power. I really like how you've got the extra USB on the power lead, and I love the fact you can have up to a 256 gig SD card. So overall with the camera, everything's really good about it, so I'm really happy with it. So if you are in the market for one, or if you've been looking at this one and you're wondering about it, yeah, I do recommend you buy it. I think it's a good camera.
I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any, if you click on the links, it will take you to the Amazon websites with the cameras. There's a full description of the camera and its features. You can click on that, look through all the specs. So if there's any technical questions, that you can click on the links and they'll pretty much answer any of them. But if there's any other questions you may have about the actual, my experience of using the camera, or any other questions about it that I haven't covered, you can leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer your questions.